Ancient temples across the globe whisper a secret in stone. From the jungles of Cambodia to the Egyptian desert, the same precise geometry appears in structures built thousands of miles and years apart. This video will reveal how a hidden architectural language connected ancient civilizations, offering you a new understanding of our shared human past. How did builders separated by vast oceans use identical blueprints? What forgotten knowledge allowed them to encode cosmic principles into their temples? Are we willing to reconsider the story of human history? This universal language is written into the very fabric of our world. Look at the spiral of a seashell, the hexagonal perfection of a honeycomb, or the branching pattern of a tree. These are not random designs. They are expressions of a fundamental order, a set of geometric rules that ancient philosophers saw as the blueprint for creation itself. The Greek thinker Plato described 5 perfect solid shapes, believing these forms were the essential building blocks of all matter. This was not abstract philosophy to temple builders. It was a practical guide. They sought to capture this cosmic order in stone, to create sacred spaces that resonated with the same harmony found in a galaxy or a flower. The core shapes they used were deeply symbolic. The circle, with no beginning and no end, represented heaven and the eternal. The square, with its 4 equal sides, symbolized the stability of the earth. And the triangle, pointing upward, was the bridge between the two, a direct connection to the divine. Constructing a temple was far more than an architectural project. It was a spiritual act. The geometry was not merely decorative. It was considered a functional technology, a way to build a structure that could channel spiritual energy and align perfectly with the principles governing the universe. This profound belief in sacred geometry as a living force appears independently across the globe. From the Vedic traditions of India to the mystical schools of Egypt, cultures who could not have communicated shared this core understanding. To see why their temples look so similar, we must first learn to read this shared symbolic language, and that journey leads us directly to a mysterious and irrational number that they all held sacred. This same obsession with perfect proportion led builders to a specific, almost magical number. It appears in the curve of a seashell and the branching of a tree. It is the golden ratio, a mathematical constant of approximately 1.618. Known by the Greek letter phi, this number represents a unique relationship where a line is divided, so the whole is to the larger part as the larger part is to the smaller. The result is a proportion considered inherently and universally beautiful. The ancient Greeks saw this as divine harmony, and they engineered it into their most celebrated temple, the Parthenon. Its facade fits perfectly within a golden rectangle, but this was not just a Greek secret. Far across the sea, the Great Pyramid of Giza embodies this same ratio in the proportions of its triangular sides. Its slant height is in the golden ratio to half its base length. How could two cultures separated by vast distances both fixate on this same irrational number? Was it a shared inheritance of knowledge, or does this ratio speak to something more fundamental, a universal language of beauty etched into human perception? The intentional use of phi suggests these were not just tombs or monuments, but structures designed to be spiritually resonant, to vibrate with the same harmony found in the natural world. This cross-cultural pursuit of mathematical perfection reveals a deep, shared belief that to build with these proportions was to touch the divine. And if this sacred geometry was the language, then the heavens themselves provided the punctuation. This celestial conversation was written directly into the architecture, To understand the temples, we must look up because the builders were not just looking at the ground. They were mapping the sky. Across continents, sacred sites were engineered with breathtaking precision to align with the sun, moon, and stars. The most profound of these alignments involve the solstices and equinoxes, the pivotal moments of the solar year. At the ancient mound of Newgrange in Ireland, a tomb older than the pyramids, a narrow roof box was constructed above the entrance. For just a few minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a single shaft of sunlight pierces this opening, traveling down a long passage to illuminate the central burial chamber deep within the earth. It is a feat of engineering and astronomy, a moment of calculated brilliance in the heart of the darkest winter. Thousands of miles away, in the stone temples of Abu Simbel in Egypt, a similar spectacle occurs. Twice a year at the equinoxes, the rising sun would flood the inner sanctuary, lighting up the statues of three gods seated beside the pharaoh Ramses II. The fourth statue, the god of the underworld, remained forever in shadow. This was not a happy accident. This was celestial choreography carved in granite. These solar events were far more than a primitive calendar. They were the heart of religious belief. The journey of the sun god was a central myth in many cultures, representing death and rebirth, order triumphing over chaos. By building a structure where the sun itself performed a ritual, the temple became a stage for the divine drama. The sun god entered his own house, proving his power and his connection to the ruler. This required more than just marking a spot on the ground. It demanded a geometric blueprint that could translate the vast, cyclical movements of the cosmos into a static, terrestrial building. The architects needed to understand angles of azimuth, the declination of the sun, and how to project those celestial paths onto their architectural plans. They were, in effect, building a permanent observatory, a machine made of stone that could predict and monumentalize time itself. This shared, global obsession with linking Earth to heaven points to a profound question. What tools, what forgotten methods of sighting and measurement allowed these ancient cultures to achieve such a stunning degree of accuracy? But the celestial alignments were only one piece of a much larger puzzle. To build with such cosmic precision, these ancient architects needed something more fundamental, a common language of measurement. A startling possibility emerges from the stone itself. Researchers examining sites from Stonehenge in England to the sprawling rows of Karnak in France have noticed a recurring length, a standard unit that appears again and again. This has been called the Megalithic Yard, a measure of approximately 2.72 of our modern feet. The consistency is baffling. How could builders across Europe, separated by centuries and geography, be using the same ruler? The mystery deepens when we look at the mathematics embedded in the Great Pyramid. The ratio of its perimeter to its height is a very close approximation of 2 times pi. This is not a simple measurement. It represents a sophisticated understanding of a fundamental mathematical constant. How could cultures without known contact arrive at the same complex conclusions and the same physical standards? The recurring presence of pi and phi and a potential standard unit is too consistent to dismiss as mere coincidence. It forces a difficult question. Were these ideas independently discovered by separate geniuses, or were they working from a shared, ancient blueprint? This enigma of measurement suggests a web of knowledge, a thread connecting sites we see as isolated. To truly understand the scale of this connection, we must step back and see the pattern not in a single stone, but across the entire planet. This pattern extends far beyond individual sites to a network spanning the entire planet. When you plot the locations of Giza, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, and Angkor Wat on a globe, a fascinating picture begins to emerge. These iconic places, separated by oceans and built in different millennia, appear to be connected by vast geometric lines and patterns. Some researchers suggest they are positioned on a great circle that wraps around the Earth, while others see alignments along so-called ley lines, hypothetical energy paths that crisscross the landscape. The precision of their placement relative to the Earth's own dimensions is often mathematically striking. For instance, the distance from the Great Pyramid to the center of the Nazca lines in Peru forms a specific proportion with other key distances, as if part of a colossal, unseen blueprint. Mainstream archaeology often views these patterns as coincidental, the inevitable result of having so many points on a sphere. They argue that with enough sites, you can always find some that appear to align. Yet the consistency of the geometry and its recurrence across so many separate cultures invites a deeper look. Could this really all be random chance? The idea that these temples were placed with conscious, global coordination pushes the very boundaries of accepted history. It suggests a level of world-spanning knowledge and communication that we do not traditionally attribute to the ancient world. This is not just about moving stones, it is about a civilization, or perhaps several interconnected cultures, possessing a sophisticated understanding of geodesy, the science of measuring the Earth itself. They would have needed to know the planet's size and shape to plot points with such accuracy. If they did possess this lost knowledge, then the very ground we walk on was their canvas. This profound possibility makes the question of how they built these sites even more urgent. How do you move stones that way as much as small mountains, and fit them together with a precision that still baffles modern engineers? The stone walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru defy simple explanation. You are not looking at simple blocks. You are witnessing a colossal, three-dimensional puzzle carved from solid rock. Each stone is a unique, irregular polygon, some weighing over 100 tons, yet they are fitted together so perfectly that the seams between them are virtually invisible. You cannot slip a piece of paper, let alone a razor blade, into the gaps. This is polygonal masonry, a construction technique of almost supernatural precision that appears in ancient sites across the world. The process begins with the quarrying of these behemoths, a feat of incredible force and patience, but the true mystery lies in the fitting. How did they achieve such a perfect match between stones that are not simple rectangles? The prevailing theory suggests a method of trial and error, where a block was repeatedly lowered onto the one below, with high spots marked and painstakingly ground away until the two surfaces conformed exactly. This alone would represent a monumental undertaking requiring an immense investment of time and labor, yet the result is more than just a tight fit. The interlocking, jigsaw-like nature of the walls makes them incredibly resilient to earthquakes. While a wall of straight, stacked blocks can be shaken apart, these polygonal walls shift and settle as a single, unified mass, absorbing the Earth's tremors without collapsing. This is not just artistry, it is brilliant applied engineering. But when we see this identical technique appear in other parts of the world, from ancient Japan to pre-Columbian Peru, the question of independent invention becomes more complex. The knowledge required goes beyond simple stone cutting. It implies a deep understanding of geology, physics, and structural dynamics. To shape stone in this way is to converse with the material itself, to understand its hidden strengths and weaknesses. This level of sophistication hints at a technological prowess that we are only beginning to appreciate. The mystery of how they moved these stones is another enigma altogether, one that leads us to the very limits of known ancient capability. The pyramid is a shape that echoes across continents and millennia. In the deserts of Egypt, they rise as smooth-sided tombs for pharaohs. In the jungles of Mexico, they stand as stepped platforms for priests. In the ancient city of in Mesopotamia, they were massive ziggurats, stairways for the gods. Their specific purposes and styles differ, yet the fundamental choice of a pyramidal form is a global constant. This is not a case of simple imitation. These cultures were separated by oceans and vast stretches of time, yet they all converged on the same powerful geometric shape. Why the pyramid is inherently stable, a structure that resists the pull of gravity and the erosion of centuries. Its wide base and narrowing peak create a form that is both monumentally imposing and incredibly durable. But the reasons run far deeper than simple engineering. Across these cultures, the pyramid was a symbolic axis mundi, a world axis connecting the earth to the heavens. Its four sides, often meticulously aligned to the four cardinal directions, anchored the structure to the terrestrial realm, while its apex reached for the divine. In Egypt, the pyramid was a ramp for the soul of the king to ascend to the stars. In Mesoamerica, temples like El Castillo at Chichen Itza served as colossal calendars. During the equinoxes, the play of light and shadow creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase, a manifestation of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan. At Teotihuacan, the pyramid of the sun and moon are precisely oriented along the city's main avenue, known as the Avenue of the Dead, aligning with celestial cycles in a vast urban plan. This shared impulse to build a primordial mound, a man-made mountain that bridged the human and the divine, speaks to a universal human intuition. The pyramid was more than a building. It was a spiritual technology, a concentrated point of power where the geometry itself was believed to facilitate communication with the cosmos. This recurring architectural archetype suggests that these cultures, in their search for the sacred, were independently tapping into the same deep well of symbolic understanding. The pyramid is perhaps the most potent physical expression of that shared quest, a silent testament to a common language of form that transcended all barriers. These intricate carvings are a language in themselves, etched deep into the stone of temples from India to the Americas. On the walls of a Hindu temple in Khajuraho, you will find complex mandalas, circular diagrams bursting with geometric precision. In the ancient city of Copan, built by the Maya, you will see the same spirals and labyrinthine patterns. These were far more than decoration. They were functional tools for spiritual practice. A monk or a priest would meditate upon a mandala, using its concentric circles and squares as a map to guide their consciousness from the outer material world toward an inner, sacred center. The labyrinth served a similar purpose, its single, winding path a physical and spiritual journey representing the difficult road to enlightenment. This was a symbolic grammar for the soul. Certain symbols appear again and again with remarkable consistency, as if drawn from a shared human wellspring. The spiral is one of the most powerful. In Celtic art, it represents the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In Native American petroglyphs, it can symbolize the journey of life force or the path of celestial bodies. The lotus flower, rising pristine from muddy waters, is another global archetype. In ancient Egypt, it was a symbol of the sun and rebirth. In Buddhism, it represents purity and the potential for spiritual awakening, untouched by the world's challenges. This repetition of core symbols points to a universal language of archetypes, fundamental patterns of meaning that resonate across cultures. To understand the grand geometric blueprints of the temples, we must learn to read this smaller, more intimate script. The massive pyramid and the precise solar alignment define the temple's cosmic function, its relationship to the heavens, but the carvings reveal the personal, human experience intended within that space. They were the user's manual for transcendence, guiding an individual through a spiritual process encoded in the very architecture. The same principles of sacred geometry that govern the placement of a temple were miniaturized and made interactive on its walls. The spiral on a stone block is a small echo of the grand spiral of a galaxy that the temple itself was built to honor. This shared symbolic language suggests that the spiritual intent behind these structures was remarkably similar, even if the names of the gods and the details of the rituals differed. It was an intent focused on connection, on building a bridge between the human and the divine using the universal constants of number and form. The fact that a person from one ancient culture might have intuitively understood the spiritual purpose of a temple from a completely different, distant culture is a profound thought. It hints that the geometry connecting these temples was not just about measurement, but about meaning, a silent dialogue in stone that seems to transcend time itself. The stones of these ancient temples hold another secret, one that is heard rather than seen. Recent research has uncovered that many of these sacred spaces are not just geometric marvels, but also sophisticated acoustic instruments. Deep within the Great Pyramid, specific chambers resonate at low frequencies that can be felt physically. On the island of Malta, the underground hypogeum, a labyrinth carved from solid rock, contains a chamber known as the Oracle Room, where a single spoken tone is amplified and mysteriously projected throughout the entire complex. This is not a quirk of architecture. Experts in the field of archaeoacoustics argue that these sonic properties were deliberately engineered. The very geometry of the stone was calculated to manipulate sound waves, creating resonant frequencies that could affect human brainwave patterns. In ritual settings, the sustained drone of chanting or the vibration of a specific tone could induce altered states of awareness, facilitating a deeper spiritual connection or a perceived communication with the divine. This use of sound as a sacred tool is a global phenomenon. The Vedic traditions of India hold that the universe was created through primordial sound, and their ancient chants are precise sonic formulas. Similarly, the concept of the logos, or the word, as a creative force appears in creation myths from Greece to ancient Egypt. The temple, therefore, was not a silent, empty monument. It was a living resonator, a multi-sensory environment where geometry, light, and sound worked in concert to create an immersive experience of the sacred. The walls were not merely boundaries, they were active participants in the ritual, designed to carry and transform sound into something transcendent. This hidden acoustic dimension forces us to reconsider the capabilities of the master builders. They were not only astronomers and stonemasons, they were masters of physics, manipulating the invisible energy of vibration with the same intention they applied to aligning with the stars. Who were these architects who could weave the very fabric of sound into their stone blueprints? Who were the minds behind these stone symphonies? The identities of the master builders are often shrouded in legend, elevating them from mere architects to near mythical figures. In ancient Egypt, the name Imhotep resonates through time. He was not just a builder for Pharaoh Djoser, he was a high priest, a physician, and the genius who conceived the first pyramid, the step pyramid at Saqqara. He was later deified, a mortal man transformed into a god of wisdom, a testament to the profound importance placed on his knowledge. Far to the east, in the Vedic tradition of India, this sacred knowledge was preserved by the Esthapotis. These were not simple laborers, but Brahmin architects who saw their work as a spiritual discipline. They worked from texts called the Shilpa Shastras, intricate manuals that detailed everything from the cosmic symbolism of a temple's layout to the exact proportions for carving a deity's eye. For them, a single miscalculation was not an architectural flaw, but a spiritual failure. How did such specialized, elite knowledge appear in cultures with no apparent contact? The recurring archetype of a divine teacher is a powerful clue. The Maya spoke of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent who brought the knowledge of civilization, including architecture. The Inca had Viracocha, a wise, bearded creator god who taught humanity the arts of building. These are not mere creation myths. They point to a deep-seated cultural memory of a foundational event, a moment when advanced knowledge was gifted or discovered. This pattern suggests the possibility of a shared, elite school of thought, a clandestine network of initiates who guarded and transmitted this geometric wisdom across generations. The mechanisms of this transmission are the true enigma. Was it carried by unknown seafarers crossing oceans we thought were impassable? Was it embedded in secret societies, passed down orally from master to apprentice in a chain unbroken for millennia? The sheer consistency of the core principles, from the use of the golden ratio to the alignment with solstices, is a powerful argument against independent invention. It hints at a common source, a primordial wellspring of understanding about the universe and our place within it, a knowledge so vital that it was encoded into the most enduring monuments our species has ever created. The stones themselves ask us to consider a forgotten chapter in our collective story, one written not on parchment, but in the very geometry of the earth. The very stones of these ancient temples might be humming with a power we can scarcely measure. An emerging idea suggests these sacred sites were not placed randomly, but were deliberately located atop specific geological features, particularly where powerful underground water sources flow. Aquifers, deep reservoirs of water moving through subterranean rock, create subtle electrical currents and pressure shifts. Some researchers propose that the massive stone blocks of a temple, arranged in precise geometric patterns, could act as a kind of antenna, interacting with these natural telluric currents that ripple through the earth. This is not magic, but a possible forgotten physics. Modern instruments have sometimes detected unusual energy fields and electromagnetic anomalies at locations like the Great Pyramid or the stone circles of Europe. These readings hint at a tangible, energetic dimension to these places that goes beyond their visible form. Could the geometry itself have been a technology for harnessing this earth energy? The hypothesis is that the architects were not just building for the heavens, but were tapping into the planet's own vital pulse. The spiral patterns carved on temple walls might then be more than just symbols. They could be schematic diagrams of these swirling, underground energies. This creates a profound picture of a deep, symbiotic relationship. The sacred geometry of the temple was not imposed upon the land, but was designed in resonance with the unseen geometry of the Earth's own energy networks. The structure becomes a focal point, a place where the energies of the sky, mapped through celestial alignments, meet the energies of the Earth, channeled through its geology. This fusion of cosmic and terrestrial power would have made the temple a truly liminal space, a nexus where the divine was believed to be most accessible. The idea that these sites were used for healing or deep meditation gains a new layer of possibility if their very stones were subtly vibrating with the planet's natural frequency. It suggests a level of intuitive understanding we are only now beginning to comprehend with our instruments, a knowledge that saw the Earth not as an inert rock, but as a living, breathing entity. If the geometry connected the temples across continents, perhaps it was because they were all plugged into the same planetary source. This celestial clock ticks with an almost unimaginable slowness. Beyond the daily sunrise and the yearly solstice lies a vaster cycle, a grand wobble in the Earth's rotation known as the Precession of the Equinoxes. This cycle takes approximately 26,000 years to complete, a span so immense it dwarfs recorded history. Yet there is compelling evidence that our ancestors not only knew of this cycle but deliberately encoded it into their most enduring monuments. The Great Sphinx of Giza, a lion-bodied colossus gazing eastward, presents a tantalizing clue. Astroarchaeologists suggest its form is not arbitrary. They propose it was crafted to align with the constellation Leo during the Age of Leo, an epoch that would have seen that constellation rising directly behind the Sun at the spring equinox around 10,000 years before the Common Era. If true, the Sphinx is not merely a statue but a permanent marker in stone, pointing to a specific moment in a 26,000-year celestial cycle. This is architecture on a cosmic timescale. To design a monument that speaks to an event occurring once every 26 millennia requires more than just advanced astronomy. It demands a perspective that thinks in units of time far beyond a single human life or even an entire civilization. It implies a burning desire to send a message across an abyss of time to future generations they could never meet. The geometry of temples, therefore, might function as a kind of long-term clock. The precise angles of a passageway, the alignment of a series of pillars, could be calibrated not just to the sun's annual journey, but to its slow, drifting path against the backdrop of stars over centuries. This integration of precessional cycles transforms a building from a place of worship into a permanent observatory, an instrument for measuring galactic time. Why would a culture invest such immense effort to track a cycle they would never see completed? The answer seems to lie in a profound sense of legacy. This was not architecture for the present moment. It was a project of knowledge preservation, an attempt to anchor human culture to the unchanging rhythms of the cosmos itself. The monument becomes a vessel carrying a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics through the ages, ensuring that even if writing is lost and languages fade, the stones would continue to tell time on a scale worthy of the gods. This long-term vision hints at a purpose that transcends ritual, touching on something closer to a sacred duty. It suggests that these builders saw themselves as stewards of a cosmic truth, and their greatest work was to embed that truth into the very landscape, creating a legacy in stone that whispers across millennia. This same spiral of growth echoes in the quiet unfolding of a sunflower head. Its seeds are not scattered randomly, but are packed in an intricate pattern of clockwise and counterclockwise spirals. If you count them, you will find the numbers are always consecutive in the Fibonacci sequence, like 5 and 8 or 8 and 13. This is not a quirk of the sunflower alone. You see it in the arrangement of pinecone scales, the branching of trees, and even the unfurling of a fern. It is a universal algorithm for efficient, robust growth, a pattern so fundamental that it shapes the arms of spiral galaxies. The ancient builders saw this pattern not as a mathematical curiosity, but as a visible signature of the cosmos's creative force. They sought to capture this living geometry in their own creations. The floor plans of temples in ancient Greece and India often expand in proportions that follow the Fibonacci sequence, creating a sense of organic, outward growth. The famous Greek sculpture, the Parthenon marbles, and countless statues of the Buddha are designed with body proportions that align with these ratios, making the form feel naturally balanced and harmonious to the human eye. This was a conscious act of biomimicry. By building according to the same mathematical rules that govern a nautilus shell, the architects were not just decorating a building. They were attempting to make the structure itself a living entity, vibrating with the same inherent order found in a galaxy or a flower. The temple became a microcosm, a miniature universe built to the same divine specifications. This required a deep observational science, a patient study of the natural world to decode its hidden blueprints. They were reverse engineering creation itself, and then writing their findings in stone. For modern science, however, the widespread presence of the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio presents a fascinating puzzle. researchers acknowledge its frequent appearance in nature as a result of optimal packing and growth dynamics. But when they look at its use in ancient art and architecture, a debate begins. Could so many instances be mere coincidence, the human brain naturally gravitating towards proportions it finds pleasing? Or does the deliberate and repeated incorporation of this complex mathematical idea point to a more sophisticated, shared scientific tradition than we have previously credited to the ancient world? The stones ask us to consider the possibility that their builders possessed a form of knowledge that seamlessly wove together the spiritual and the empirical, seeing no division between a prayer and a mathematical equation. Of course, the patterns we have traced are deeply compelling, but we must also listen to the voice of mainstream archaeology, which offers a very different interpretation. The academic consensus often views these geometric echoes not as evidence of a lost global civilization, but as the natural outcome of the human mind solving similar problems. From this perspective, the square and the circle are not mystical symbols, but the most fundamental and stable forms for constructing large, lasting monuments. Any culture, when faced with the challenge of building something immense and durable, would logically gravitate toward these basic, robust shapes. The widespread alignment of temples with the solstice sun is similarly explained. For societies dependent on agriculture, tracking the sun's journey was a matter of survival. Marking the longest and shortest days of the year was a practical necessity, and orienting a sacred building toward these pivotal moments was a way of honoring the life-giving force upon which the entire community depended. This was not a secret science passed between continents, but a common-sense response to the rhythms of nature, developed independently wherever farming took root. Scholars also emphasize the profound differences that separate these sites. The step pyramid of Djoser in Egypt was a sealed tomb for a single divine king, while the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica were vibrant, blood-stained platforms for public ritual. The cultures that built them worshipped different gods, spoke unrelated languages, and existed in vastly different eras. To connect them with a single geometric thread, skeptics argue, is to ignore the rich, unique tapestries of their individual histories. They see the recurring numbers like pi and phi not as proof of shared knowledge, but as mathematical inevitabilities. Any culture that explores geometry with enough depth will eventually stumble upon these constants. The burden of proof, therefore, rests heavily on those who claim a tangible connection. Can we move beyond the captivating patterns and find concrete evidence of contact, a shared technology, or a verifiable exchange of ideas that traveled across the oceans? The geometry alone, while haunting, is not enough to convince the academic mainstream. It is a mystery that stands at a crossroads, where one path leads to a forgotten world of ancient connections, and the other to the remarkable, independent ingenuity of the human spirit. This academic debate strikes at the very heart of the mystery. Were ancient architects working from a shared, secret blueprint, or were they all individually tapping into the same universal source code? The argument for diffusionism rests on the sheer improbability of coincidence. The specific, complex use of the golden ratio, the precise solar alignments, and the recurring megalithic building techniques seem too detailed to have sprung up independently in isolated pockets of the globe. Proponents of this view suggest a forgotten age of exploration, where intrepid seafarers from a single advanced culture traversed the oceans, carrying this sacred knowledge to distant shores. They point to potential, though fiercely debated, evidence like the presence of cocaine, a plant native to the Americas, in ancient Egyptian mummies, or similarities in boat designs across cultures, as hints of these prehistoric voyages. The idea is that a master teacher or a group of them walked the earth, seeding this profound understanding of cosmic order. This theory paints a picture of a connected ancient world, a network of knowledge that history has since forgotten. On the other side of this intellectual divide stands the theory of independent invention, also known as polygenesis. Its advocates argue that humanity, when faced with universal challenges and inspired by the same sun, stars, and natural forms, will logically converge on similar solutions. The pyramid is simply the most stable way to build tall. Aligning a temple with the solstice sun is the most obvious way to honor it. The human brain is hardwired to find certain proportions, like the golden ratio, inherently pleasing because we see them reflected in the living world around us. This perspective sees the similarities not as proof of contact, but as a testament to the universal spark of human genius. It celebrates the independent rise of civilization, arguing that each culture developed its own unique and brilliant expression of a common human impulse to reach for the divine. So, which is it? Is the geometric thread connecting these temples a literal one, a physical trail of knowledge carried across continents? Or is it a metaphorical thread, woven from the very fabric of human consciousness and our shared perception of a patterned universe? The stones do not give us an easy answer, leaving us suspended between two equally profound possibilities. One suggests a forgotten chapter of shared human history, while the other celebrates the magnificent parallel creativity of the human spirit. Plato's vision of a geometrically perfect cosmos revolved around 5 shapes, the only 3-dimensional forms with every face, angle, and edge identical. He called these the Platonic Solids, and to him they were far more than mathematical curiosities. He saw them as the invisible building blocks of reality itself, assigning each to a classical element. The stable cube represented Earth, the fiery tetrahedron was a pyramid of flame, air was the graceful octahedron, water the multifaceted icosahedron, and the mysterious dodecahedron, with its 12 pentagonal faces, symbolized the cosmos or ether, the substance of the heavens. This was not pure philosophy. Modern science reveals that these same shapes form the underlying architecture of our world. Look at the atomic lattice of a crystal, where atoms arrange themselves into cubes or octahedrons. Or gaze at the microscopic world of radiolaria, tiny sea creatures whose skeletons are perfect hexagons and icosahedrons. Even the large-scale distribution of galaxies in the universe appears to form a vast, web-like structure whose nodes echo these fundamental forms. Some researchers now propose that ancient architects were thinking along these very lines. They suggest that temples were not just aligned with the stars, but were designed as 3-dimensional models of these cosmic blueprints. A temple's floor plan might encode the 2-dimensional net of a dodecahedron, while its 3-dimensional space embodied the solid itself, creating a sacred enclosure that was a scale model of the universe. This was the ultimate act of sacred architecture, to construct a microcosm, a miniature heaven on earth where every stone resonated with the geometric language of creation. By stepping inside, a worshipper was not merely entering a building. They were symbolically entering the ordered mind of the cosmos, a space where the divine mathematics of the universe became tangible. If these perfect solids are indeed the hidden framework of everything, then the ancient builders were not just stacking stones. They were assembling reality itself, one geometrically perfect block at a time. This impossible mathematical challenge echoes a profound spiritual struggle. For the temple builders, the problem of squaring the circle was far more than a geometric exercise. It was the central metaphor of their entire endeavor, a symbolic representation of bringing the infinite, boundless heavens into the finite, ordered world of human experience. The circle, with no beginning and no end, represented the divine, the cosmos, and the eternal cycles of time. The square, with its 4 equal sides and stable foundation, stood for the earth, the material world, and the 4 cardinal directions that anchor our reality. To create a square with the exact same area as a circle was to achieve the impossible, to perfectly harmonize spirit and matter. This is why we find this motif etched into sacred spaces across the globe. In the intricate mandalas of Tibetan Buddhism, a square palace often sits at the center of multiple concentric circles, a map for the meditator to journey from the outer ring of the cosmos to the inner sanctum of enlightenment. The design is a spiritual equation for squaring the circle. In ancient Rome, the city itself was founded from a ritual called the Sulcus Primigenius, where a circular, sacred boundary was first plowed, only to have a square city rise within it, literally forming a squared circle as the blueprint for civilization. Even the Great Dome of the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, a circle representing heaven, rests upon a square base, a perfect architectural embodiment of this unifying principle. The builders knew this geometric problem could not be solved with the tools of their world, and that was precisely the point. The act of trying, of striving to resolve this paradox in stone, was itself the highest form of worship. It was a physical declaration of humanity's eternal yearning to bridge the gap between our earthly existence and the spiritual realm, to make the divine tangible. Every temple that attempts this fusion, from the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica that square the circle of the sky with their platforms, to the Hindu temples where the circular dome of the Shikhara Tower meets the square Mandapa Hall, is a testament to this shared metaphysical goal. They are not failures of mathematics, but triumphant successes of symbolic meaning, each one a bold, enduring statement of our ancestors' deepest spiritual aspiration. This same intuitive sense of place was formalized into a profound science of location. Across the ancient world, the act of choosing where to build was a sacred dialogue with the land itself. In China, this practice was known as Feng Shui, the art of wind and water. Its masters did not simply pick a scenic spot. They read the contours of the hills, the flow of rivers, and the direction of the wind, seeking the perfect alignment with invisible currents they called dragon line. A temple placed at the convergence of these energies was believed to harness vitality and prosperity for the entire region. Far to the west, in India, the Vedic science of Vastu Shastra provided an almost identical geometric blueprint. A Vastu temple is a perfect square, the most stable of forms, meticulously oriented to the cardinal directions. Its layout is a mandala, a cosmic diagram, with its central point considered the navel of the world, the precise spot where the energy of the earth is most concentrated and accessible. The architect's task was to build a structure that would not disrupt this natural flow, but would amplify it, turning the building into a resonant chamber for the planet's own life force. The parallels are startling. A ley line in the British Isles, a dragon line in China, and a Serpa in the Vastu tradition. Different cultures gave different names to the same perceived phenomenon, a web of energy woven into the very fabric of the earth. This global recurrence suggests something deeper than cultural exchange. It points to a universal human sensitivity, an innate ability to feel the subtle vibrations of a place. The geometry of the temples, then, becomes a kind of applied resonance. The precise angles, the specific proportions, were not arbitrary rules. They were the calculated response to an invisible geography, a way of tuning the stone structure to the frequency of the land it stood upon. When a temple was built according to these principles, it was more than a shelter for worship. It became a spiritual power plant, its geometry acting as a lens to focus the Earth's own energy for the health and harmony of the community. This shared belief that human well-being was intrinsically linked to the energetic character of the land reveals a holistic world we are only now beginning to rediscover. The sacred geometry of the pyramids did not vanish into the past. It was merely translated, its principles carried forward through the centuries by a new kind of architect, the master masons of medieval Europe. In the soaring heights of Gothic cathedrals like Chartres and Notre Dame, we see the ancient language of form reborn in stone and glass. These were not just places of worship, but vast geometric prayers reaching for the heavens. The master builders, operating within secretive guilds, employed the same timeless tools, the golden ratio and the pentagram, to design their monumental works. The entire floor plan of Chartres Cathedral is a complex geometric diagram, its proportions governing the relationship between the nave, the transepts, and the apse with mathematical precision. The famous rose windows are not just beautiful stained glass, they are massive, radiant mandalas, their intricate tracery based on the precise divisions of a circle, echoing the cosmic wheels found in temples thousands of years older and thousands of miles away. Even the seemingly chaotic assortment of stone on the floor, the labyrinth, is a carefully measured path for spiritual pilgrimage, a Christianized version of the same symbolic journey encoded in ancient carvings. This was not a coincidence, it was a direct lineage, a chain of knowledge passed hand to hand, from master to apprentice, through the protected traditions of the Mason guilds. These societies guarded their geometric secrets as closely as any ancient priesthood, understanding that this was the key to building a structure that could truly touch the divine. The cathedral, with its vaulted ceilings that mimic the canopy of the sky and its light filtered through sacred geometry, becomes the direct inheritor of the temple's purpose. It stands as a powerful bridge in time, a tangible link connecting the stone circles of antiquity to the stained glass of the medieval world, proving that the quest to build heaven on earth is a story written across all of human history. The silent language of these ancient temples is now being amplified by the tools of modern science. Researchers are no longer limited to measuring stones with tape and compass. Today, they employ satellites that scan the Earth from orbit, ground-penetrating radar that reveals the world beneath our feet, and three-dimensional laser scanners that capture every contour of a ruin with millimeter precision. These technologies are acting like a new set of senses, allowing us to see the invisible. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have uncovered vast, unknown networks of chambers and tunnels beneath sites like the Stonehenge landscape, suggesting the monuments we see are merely the tip of a much larger architectural iceberg. Meanwhile, laser scanning, or LIDAR, has stripped away the dense jungle canopy to reveal that the entire city of Angkor Wat was part of a sprawling, perfectly oriented grid, a geometric urban plan on a scale previously unimaginable. This flood of new data is transforming a field once dominated by speculation. What were once intriguing theories about alignments and patterns are now becoming quantifiable, measurable facts. The precise orientation of a temple corridor can be verified to an accuracy of a fraction of a degree. The recurring mathematical ratios in its construction can be calculated and compared across continents with digital certainty. This empirical approach is building a new foundation for understanding, one based on hard data rather than just philosophical interpretation. It offers a crucial opportunity to separate profound truth from compelling fiction, to use the rigor of the scientific method to test the boldest claims about our ancestors' knowledge. We can now ask, with the expectation of a clear answer, did these cultures truly share a common geometric blueprint? The stones are finally beginning to speak in a language we can all understand, the universal dialect of mathematics and physics. These profound feelings of peace and awe are not accidental. Modern science is beginning to uncover why a geometrically perfect space can so directly alter our inner state. Environmental psychology reveals that our minds and bodies respond in measurable ways to specific spatial arrangements. Symmetry and harmonic proportion appear to signal safety and order to our nervous system, often lowering heart rate and reducing stress. Conversely, chaotic or dissonant environments can trigger subtle anxiety. This goes beyond culture, touching something foundational in our human wiring. The biophilia hypothesis offers a compelling explanation, proposing that we possess an innate biological connection to the natural world. We are drawn to the branching pattern of a tree, the spiral of a galaxy, and the fractal repetition of a coastline because we are made of the same stuff. Sacred geometry is in essence the architectural language of these natural patterns. When a temple's columns rise in the golden ratio or its floor plan expands in a Fibonacci sequence, it is not just mimicking nature, it is speaking directly to a deep, ancestral part of our brain that recognizes this as a place of balance and life. Neuroscientific studies have shown that exposure to such environments can even shift our brainwave patterns. The frantic beta waves associated with active concentration can give way to the calmer, more receptive alpha and theta waves, states linked to meditation, creativity, and a sense of expanded awareness. This suggests the ancient architects were not just spiritual guides but early neuroscientists. They were designing conscious environments, using universal geometric keys to unlock specific, elevated states of human consciousness. The temple, therefore, was a technology for the mind and spirit. Its precise proportions were a tuning fork, calibrated not to a musical note, but to the very resonance of human peace and perception. The quiet awe you might feel standing in such a place is not just a mood. It is a physiological and psychological response to an architecture designed with stunning intention to help you touch something greater than yourself. These ancient myths were far more than simple tales of gods and monsters. They were the primary vehicle for transmitting a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, a secret language where profound geometry was hidden in plain sight within the narrative. The epic battles between deities often symbolized the struggle to impose cosmic order from primal chaos, a process that ancient philosophers described using geometric forms and ratios. The long, arduous journeys of heroes frequently followed spiraling paths or sacred geometric patterns, mapping a spiritual progression that mirrored the mathematical structure of the universe itself. Even the widespread motif of the cosmic egg from which all creation hatches is a perfect geometric symbol for the singularity and the emergent, expanding universe. By studying these stories cross-culturally, we begin to see a pattern emerge. The Hindu concept of Purusha, a cosmic being whose sacrifice led his body to become the very fabric of the world, is a stunning example. His different limbs and organs were assigned to specific social classes and natural elements, creating a complex, living diagram of creation. This was not merely a social hierarchy, but a geometric model of the universe, a symbolic blueprint that assigned every part of existence its precise place within a unified, organic whole. Similarly, the Norse world tree, Yggdrasil, is not just a tree. It is a geometric axis, a central pillar connecting 9 distinct worlds in a precise, layered cosmology. Its roots and branches form a 3-dimensional map of reality, a structure that resonates deeply with the axis mundi represented by pyramids and temples across the globe. Why encode this knowledge in stories? This method ensured its survival across generations and protected it from being lost or corrupted. A myth could be told and retold, sung and remembered, long after a specific school of thought or a library of scrolls had turned to dust. The geometric principles were considered so sacred and powerful that embedding them within the cultural DNA of a story was the surest way to preserve them. The myth became a living container, a narrative vessel carrying the blueprints of creation within its plot and characters. When we learn to read these stories not as literal histories, but as allegorical texts, we unlock a forgotten library of ancient science. The hero's journey becomes a lesson in transformational geometry. The description of a god's celestial palace reveals the precise proportions of a sacred space. This perspective transforms every ancient myth from a simple fable into a potential codebook, waiting for us to decipher its hidden mathematical truths and understand the world through the eyes of the builders who saw number and form as the very language of the divine. The gap between their simple tools and impossible precision is the heart of the mystery. How do you build a celestial observatory with little more than rope and wooden pegs? For creating the foundational geometry, the tools were astonishingly basic. A length of rope, a central peg, and a second peg to act as a scribe were all that was needed to inscribe a perfect circle on the ground, defining the sacred boundary of a temple. To form a perfect right angle, the essential square for aligning with the cardinal directions, they used a simple loop of rope with 12 equally spaced knots. By stretching the rope to form a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units, they created a perfect Pythagorean triangle, guaranteeing a 90-degree angle. This simple, brilliant technique was known from ancient Babylon to Egypt and appears to have been a universal tool in the builder's kit. But this is where the mystery truly deepens. These basic tools can explain the layout, but they cannot account for the mind-boggling work that followed. How were 100-ton blocks of granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, cut with such accuracy that their seams are almost invisible? The evidence left on unfinished stones and in ancient quarries provides tantalizing clues. We see deep, precise drill holes in Egyptian granite, suggesting the use of tubular drills that must have been tipped with a material harder than diamond. We find saw marks on massive stone blocks, indicating the use of saws that were 9 feet long, tools whose composition and operation we can only guess at. The surfaces of these stones are often polished to a mirror finish, a process that would be challenging even with modern power tools. The methods for moving these megaliths are equally perplexing. Did they use log rollers or perhaps a system of water-lubricated sledges on artificial pathways? How did they lift these colossal weights hundreds of feet into the air to cap a pyramid? The conventional explanations feel insufficient, like trying to build a modern skyscraper with only a hammer and some nails. The precision of the final product stands in stark contrast to the rudimentary tools we have found. This technological gap forces us to ask whether we have underestimated their ingenuity, or if they possessed some lost method, a forgotten physics that allowed them to soften stone or manipulate gravity itself. Solving the puzzle of global temple geometry requires us to bridge this divide, to understand not just the sacred mind of the architect, but the calloused hands of the mason who turned cosmic vision into enduring stone. Yet with all these pieces laid out, the grand picture remains frustratingly incomplete. We are left staring at a global tapestry of stone, its threads connected by geometry, but the weaver's hands and their ultimate design are still shrouded in mystery. The most persistent question is one of communication. How was this complex knowledge of ratios, alignments, and measurements standardized and transmitted across continents? Was there a single, wandering teacher culture, a network of seafarers carrying sacred blueprints, or did a now submerged civilization disseminate this information before vanishing beneath the waves? The mechanisms of this transfer remain archaeology's greatest blind spot. Perhaps the answer is even more profound. Maybe this was not a technology that needed to be carried, but one that was independently remembered, a shared inheritance from a time when humanity perceived the universe's underlying patterns with a clarity we have since lost. This leads directly to the question of purpose. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? What was the true function of this planetary network? Were these sites designed as a unified system to stabilize the Earth's own energies, as some researchers speculate? Or were they meant to be a kind of backup drive for human knowledge, a fail-safe built into the landscape to preserve cosmic truths through any future catastrophe? The precision of their placement hints at a goal far beyond local ritual or seasonal calendars. It suggests a coordinated project on a scale we can scarcely comprehend, an ancient mission to harmonize human civilization with the very fabric of reality. To solve these riddles, we must embrace a new kind of exploration. The future of this research lies not in any single field, but in the collaboration between them. Archaeologists must work alongside astrophysicists to model ancient skies with greater precision. Geologists need to partner with engineers to analyze the acoustic and electromagnetic properties of the stones themselves. We must use satellite technology to search for undiscovered sites that complete the geometric patterns, and we must apply advanced material science to finally understand how these builders worked their stone with such impossible skill. This is a detective story that spans the entire globe and the breadth of human knowledge. Each unanswered question is not a dead end, but an invitation. It calls on us to look at our ancient past with fresh eyes, to question our assumptions about human potential, and to continue the search for the lost key that will finally unlock the silent language of the stones. Our journey across continents and millennia reveals a stunning pattern, a shared language of sacred geometry etched in stone. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia, these structures speak in a unified voice. Whether this points to a lost global civilization, to the profound independent genius of humanity, or to something even more mysterious, the message is clear. It speaks to a universal human yearning to understand the cosmos and to build a reflection of its order here on Earth. These stones are far more than silent ruins. They are a testament to a forgotten connection, a whisper from the past that urges us to look deeper into our shared heritage. As we continue to decode these geometric messages with new technologies and open minds, we may learn much more than just the techniques of our ancestors. We may rediscover timeless truths about the universe and our own place within its beautiful mathematical design. If this mystery of connected temples captivates you, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe these geometric patterns represent? And for more journeys into the unknown, be sure to subscribe.